Chapter 101. His meaning was clear. If she told Old Lady Gu to return to her room quickly, Suanan wouldn't need to raise her head and bleed from her nose. Oh. Old Lady Gu stood up. She was still dizzy, but when she stood up, her body swayed, causing Gu Zhen's heart to ache. Lie down a little longer. Don't rush in. Gu Zhen said she will not die from exhaustion. With that, Gu Zhen looked at Gu Mocheng, who was still wiping his nose, and said coldly, I have a wife, and have forgotten mother, and am not a filial son. Same here, Gu Zhen replied. Gu Mocheng watched how Gu Zhen spoiled Old Lady Gu from a young age. He was tortured by Old Lady Gu many times when he was young, crying and complaining to Gu Zhen. One could imagine how Gu Zhen's words back then had hurt Gu Mocheng's heart. Old Lady Gu did not listen to Gu Zhen's advice. In her heart, the world was vast and her daughter-in-law was growing up. However, the enmity between Gu Zhen and him had been resolved, and he didn't like the look of Suanan. After Gu Zhen and Old Lady Gu left, Suanan turned her head and looked at Gu Mocheng worriedly. Sorry. Sorry for what? Gu Mocheng replied, In the future, what soup does she want you to drink? Don't drink it. Not enough to eat. Gu Mocheng added. Suanan said, I'm afraid that mother will be unhappy. She was even more afraid that it would be difficult for Gu Mocheng to be stuck in the middle, because Old Lady Gu was unhappy. Gu Mocheng caressed Suanan's hair, and said, I'm fine. Don't care if she's happy or not. If you don't like it, then reject it. The moment he saw the empty soup bowls and pots on the table, he knew in his heart that his mother would definitely get Suanan to drink it all. He did not know how many ingredients were put in the soup, but with the darkness treatment done by Old Lady Gu, he could imagine how horrible the soup was. Will Mom be unhappy? Suanan asked worriedly. Gu Mocheng looked at her and said, As long as you are happy. Hearing Gu Mocheng's words, Suanan pursed her lips and smiled. She knew that the next time Old Lady Gu asked her to taste something, she would definitely drink more. When it was dinner time, Suanan's nosebleed stopped, and Old Lady Gu recovered her spirit after sleeping for a while. She had originally planned to reveal this to Suanan at night. Gu Zhen was worried about her body and didn't want her to enter the kitchen again. Gu Mocheng also did not agree. Just now, he had drunk too much from the soup. If he ate the dishes made by Old Lady Gu, he could not guarantee what would happen to Suanan's body. Gu Mocheng felt that it was right not to bring Suanan back to her dwelling early. At the dining table, after the family sat down, Gu Mocheng asked, What about Ziming? His brother and sister-in-law had passed away early, leaving behind the young Gu Ziming. Gu Ziming was led by Gu Zhen and his wife. He said he was busy at college and had to stay and read. After hearing Old Lady Gu's words, Gu Mocheng felt disdain. Last time Gu Ziming said he would go to his classmate's home to play, Gu Mocheng saw him driving around with someone on the road in the middle of the night. When thinking about racing cars, Gu Mocheng had to remind Gu Zhen and Old Lady Gu, It's too dangerous to go car racing, watch out for Ziming. Hearing the two words, racing, the chopsticks in Suanan's hand fell on the ground with a clang. Ziming probably won't go. Old Lady Gu looked at Gu Zhen and said. Gu Zhen thought the same as Gu Mocheng as well. He hid a lot of things from the two elders. Seeing that Ziming did not have any parents, they were relatively speaking less concerned. Suanan crouched down and picked up the chopsticks from the ground, wondering who the Ziming they were talking about was. Do you also play car racing? I wonder if they've seen it on the racetrack? It's good that Ziming listens to you. He gave his chopsticks to Suanan and said to him, Ziming is half as obedient as Anan, you guys can rest easy. These words made Suanan very embarrassed. She lowered her head guiltily. Gu Zhen looked at Suanan and snorted. He still remembered the afternoon. Do you drink? Gu Zhen asked Suanan. She knew how to drink, and Suanan was a greedy person. She especially liked to drink red wine. No, Suanan lied and said. She couldn't always say that she liked to drink in front of her husband and in-laws, and would often go to bars with Amity to drink. I don't drink. That's good, Gu Zhen said. Suanan thought that Gu Zhen was a girl who thought that she did not know how to drink, but he did not expect him to say something like, Then let's drink from a bottle of red wine. He said to the servant behind him, Go and get my treasured Lafitte from the cellar. Lafitte? Hearing that, Suanan swallowed her saliva. Last time Gu Mocheng treated her to a meal, she still remembered the fragrance of the red wine that Xiaoxin had ordered. She also drank a lot of red wine and thought that Lafitte's taste was the best. Unfortunately, she was poor and had only tasted it once. Thinking about that, Suanan became energetic and sat up straight. Gu Mocheng stopped Gu Zhen from drinking when he heard him say, Anan doesn't know how to drink. Girls were not allowed to drink alcohol. I want her to drink because I don't know how to drink. Gu Zhen thought. What? I can't even have a drink with my father-in-law. Gu Zhen said unhappily. The more Gu Mocheng didn't let her drink, the more he wanted her to drink. And Anne is still young. Gu Mocheng said resolutely. Seeing that she could taste the red wine and was about to be destroyed by Gu Mocheng, Suanan wanted to cry. Let her have a drink. Small? Gu Zhen laughed coldly. She's young, yet you shamelessly got your way. This wine he must let Suanan drink it today. He did not dare to bully Old Lady Gu as he could not move from her position. Gu Zhen's words made Gu Mocheng's face turn ugly. He felt that this girl was not suitable for drinking, and seeing Gu Zhen's expression that he had no choice but to drink, he became even more worried that Gu Zhen would get drunk. No matter what, he couldn't let Anan drink. "Hubby, I'm fine with a drink." Su Anan could not take it anymore. She reached out to Gu Mo Cheng's sleeves and said. In order to show that she couldn't drink, Su Anan added, "Don't make Daddy unhappy." Old Lady Gu felt that his old man was being too excessive. What was the use of wine for a girl? However, seeing the old man's sullen face, she did not dare to persuade him again. Then, he heard Su Anan say that she should not make Gu Zhen unhappy, as he felt that his wife was being good. She was much more obedient than her grandson Gu Ziming. "Anan, drink less. If you can't drink, leave it on the table." While speaking, the servant had already brought Gu Zhen's red wine. Gu Zhen placed the entire bottle of red wine in front of Su Anan and said, "Drink it." Su Anan's eyes lit up. After smelling the wine in front of her, she immediately became greedy. She was embarrassed to pour the wine and raised her head to look at Gu Zhen. "Dad, I'm just having a drink." She poured herself a glass of red wine. When old Lady Gu saw Su Anan pour the cup so full, she was sure that the little girl was afraid that the old man would be angry, so she filled the cup to the brim. With a pained heart, she said, "An, if you can't drink it, don't." An wasn't afraid that Gu Zhen would be angry. She just wanted to pour some, fill it to the brim, and drink the entire cup of wine. Gu Mo Cheng frowned in displeasure when he saw Su Anan fill her goblet to the brim. He also felt that Su Anan was forced to fill the wine cup to the brim. "It's fine for Anan to drink less." "Yes," Su Anan said perfunctorily. All of her thoughts were on the red wine. She lowered her head and took a sip of red wine. She tasted the red wine like a kitten that had been starved for a long time. The way she looked at things made Gu Zhen and the other two curious. Su Anan felt them looking at her and immediately frowned, saying, "It tastes so bad." Hearing that Su Anan said it was bad, Gu Zhen was happy. "Let me toast you." With that said, Gu Zhen respectfully saluted Su Anan. Su Anan held up her wine cup and said, "Thank you, father." Without waiting for Gu Zhen to drink, she turned her head and took a big gulp. After drinking a mouthful, she felt that it was not enough and took another mouthful. After these two mouthfuls, most of the red wine had disappeared from the wine cup. The old lady Gu felt that Su Anan's method of drinking was very painful, so she said from the side, "An, it's fine to drink less, you don't need to drink it all." "Who said you don't need to drink it all?" Seeing the old lady defending Su Anan, Gu Zhen said angrily, "The elders toast her. There is still to be done." "Oh." These words were too much for Su Anan. She held her cup and drank it all in one go before Gu Mo Cheng could even open his mouth to speak. When she finished the wine cup, Su Anan touched the wine mark on her mouth, feeling extremely happy. An. Gu Mo Cheng felt heartache for Su Anan's way of drinking, and said, "There's no need to drink anymore." He had only drunk one cup, and now he was no longer allowed to drink it. "She's not drunk yet." The more Gu Mo Cheng and the old lady Gu defended, the more Gu Zhen disliked her, and the more he disliked Su Anan, the more he wanted to pour her wine. "Full." Su Anan answered and took the initiative to pour herself a full cup of red wine. With the 2 cups poured over, more than half of the red wine in the bottle was gone. The old lady Gu became anxious and scolded Gu Zhen, "Don't keep letting her drink so much. How can a girl drink so much alcohol?" He looked at the red wine in front of Su Anan. He made her pour it, but not all of it. Being scolded by the old lady Gu, he said to Su Anan unhappily, "An." He wanted to say, "If you can't drink, then forget it." Who knew that before he could even finish his words, Su Anan squatted down and gulped down the wine. After she finished drinking, she wiped the traces of alcohol on the corner of her mouth with satisfaction. This action caused the 3 people present to be stunned. An. He looked at Su Anan as she reached for the bottle of wine and said, "There's no need to drink anymore." Su Anan's hand was just about to touch the bottle of wine when it was stopped by him. No, she wanted to drink. She looked at Gu Mo Cheng, remembered that she was his obedient little wife, and unwillingly extended her hand. "Drink it yourself, Dad." Chapter 102. Being scolded by his own wife and son, Gu Zhen felt very unhappy. Seeing that Su Anan's expression was no different than before, and there was no sign of drunkenness, he said unhappily, "I want her to accompany me to drink. What about it?" He had to get this little girl drunk today. After he finished speaking, he glared at Su Anan and said, "Pour it yourself." After he finished speaking, Su Anan quickly filled her cup before Gu Mo Cheng could even react. When the 3 glasses were poured, the bottle was empty. "Dad, I toast you." Su Anan didn't wait for old man Gu to toast her with wine. "This way, I can have an extra drink." She took another swig. A bottle of wine simply couldn't be drunk like that by Su Anan. Looking at the bottom of the bottle of red wine, then looking at Su Anan who drank while eating, Gu Zhen started to cherish Lafitte that he had stored in his heart for many years. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that the other bottles of red wine that he had hidden were insufficient for this girl to drink. No. After Su Anan finished drinking the wine, she picked up the red wine bottle and shook it, as she said sorrowfully. She was greedy, but she didn't have much alcohol. In such a short time, she was drunk. "No wine." Su Anan repeated to Gu Zhen. Her eyes were only filled with red wine. She had already ignored Gu Mo Cheng, who was seated beside her. "Don't you have any more wine?" Suanan asked. Her words provoked Gu Zhen's interest. How could there not be red wine in his house? Thinking about this, Gu Zhen asked the servant to open another bottle of red wine. The old lady Gu panicked and stopped Gu Zhen, but Gu Zhen insisted on letting her drink the red wine. When he had toasted Suanan's red wine, Suanan had drunk a cup, and he too had drunk half a cup of white wine, feeling embarrassed. Both of them were drunk. He had seen his son-in-law come knocking on doors before, but his father-in-law hated him for wanting to get his son-in-law drunk. He had never seen his father-in-law not liking his daughter-in-law and getting drunk on her. Anan, stop drinking, Gumo Cheng said to Suanan in a bland voice. Suanan was unhappy. She held onto the wine bottle that the servant had passed over. Hubby, I want a drink. Let's drink. After saying that, she lowered her head to look at the wine cup that Gumo Cheng had carried to her side. Husband, she cried. Gumo Cheng regretted that he should not have allowed this girl to drink at all. Now that she was drunk, she started begging for wine. As he was thinking, old lady Gu saw Suanan's actions and immediately said, "Oh, An." Gumo Cheng turned to look at Suanan, who immediately drank from her wine bottle. He would never be the Suanan who obediently and fearfully followed him from behind when he came to the Gu mansion. Old man Gu woke up from his stupor and stared blankly at Suanan drinking his wine. He did not believe what he had seen. It's all your fault for letting her drink. Now she's drunk. The old lady Gu scolded Gu Zhen angrily. Gumo Cheng had already snatched the bottle from Suanan's hands. Suanan didn't want to fight over the wine bottle with Gumo Cheng. I haven't had enough. I want to drink. Seeing that she was asking for wine with all his might, Gumo Cheng got up and carried her back to his room. Before leaving, Gumo Cheng said to Gu Zhen in a displeased tone, Dad, Anan's alcohol capacity is not good. I can't drink with you anymore. These two who saw Suanan getting drunk felt that it was only because Gu Zhen had given her wine that he had done such a thing. Who would have thought that Suanan herself liked to drink so much? This time, she drank too quickly and immediately requested a drink when she was drunk. Sigh, in the Gu household she had to pretend to be a good girl. It had been a long time since she had drunk wine. Now that she had the chance to do so, of course she drank with all her might. After Gumo Cheng left, old lady Gu followed him and stood up. She said to the old man angrily, Drink, drink. You drink by yourself slowly. Gu Zhen drank until he felt dizzy. Seeing that everyone had left, he sat at the dining table and slowly drank his wine. Tonight he might as well sleep on the sofa. Gumo Cheng carried Suanan back to her room, but Suanan refused to leave. On the way upstairs, she kicked both of her feet in Gumo Cheng's embrace. Husband, I want a drink, I want a drink. I'm not addicted to it, she said, shouting. Gumo Cheng brought her into the room and laid her on the bed. The two of them fell on the bed. Suanan reached out and wrapped his arms around his neck, preventing him from leaving. Her eyes were filled with Gumo Cheng's handsome features. She giggled and burped, saying, Hubby, you're so beautiful. Suanan liked Gumo Cheng very much. After saying that, she raised her head to kiss Gumo Cheng. But when she raised her head, Gumo Cheng, who was lying on top of her, didn't kiss her. Instead, she knocked into his chin. Seeing her drunk cat look, Gumo Cheng felt that she was cute. All right, Anan, you go to sleep first, Gumo Cheng said. If he wanted to leave, Suanan would not let him. This time she hugged Gumo Cheng closer to her face, then raised her head and kissed him on his lips. Yes, Suanan said proudly. A kiss lightly landed on Gumo Cheng's lips. Gumo Cheng could feel her softness, and he lowered his head in a daze to look at Suanan, who was smiling coquettishly with a flushed face due to drunkenness. Husband? After kissing, Suanan smiled and called out to him again. Then she suddenly grabbed onto one of Gumo Cheng's hands. Well, it's not small. Gumo Cheng looked at her and said. Hearing Gumo Cheng's reply, Suanan laughed happily as she saw Gumo Cheng's face enlarge in her eyes. You haven't touched me lately. Don't you like me? Suanan said as she caressed Gumo Cheng's face and smiled. Hubby, you're so nice. As she spoke, she felt that she was a little sleepy. As she slowly closed her eyes, she heard Gumo Cheng calling her softly. An. Gumo Cheng lowered his head and kissed her. However, every time he was pulled by her, his thoughts moved. This time, the sensation from her palm made him even more uncontrollable. When he kissed her, he couldn't help it. Anan, he called again. Then, he raised his body and looked down at Suanan. He realized that she had fallen asleep. Seeing the sleeping Suanan, Gumo Cheng could not help but laugh bitterly. He had just decided that he would take her tonight, but she actually fell asleep. Seeing her sleeping face, Gumo Cheng couldn't bear to wake her up. Forget it, he was going to take a bath first before coming back to accompany her. After drinking, Suanan slept soundly. When she woke up, it was already 10 in the morning. She opened her eyes and looked around her surroundings, unable to react to the fact that she was in Gu Mansion. After a while, she remembered that she followed Gumo Cheng to the old hall yesterday to see her parents. During dinner time, she got drunk because of her greed. As for before she fell asleep, Suanan had some memories. She remembered that after drinking a bottle of red wine, she had asked Gumo Cheng for wine. Her state of drunkenness now seemed utterly humiliating to her. She was actually drunk in front of her parents-in-law. In the room without Gumo Cheng, Suanan was really too hungry, so she could only go downstairs to find Gumo Cheng. When she recalled what had happened at the table last night, she felt very embarrassed. Seeing her come down, old lady Gu immediately walked over. An, how were you last night? It's all your dad's fault. He insisted on letting you drink. The old lady Gu looked at Gu Zhen, who was sitting on the sofa, and reproached. Gu Zhen's face darkened, but he did not say anything. Good. It had been a long time since she last drank wine. When she saw that bottle of red wine, she was so greedy that she didn't even want to taste it slowly, afraid that Gu Mocheng would snatch her glass away before she drank it all in one gulp. It's not Dad's fault, it's my fault. Su Anan couldn't just tell them the truth. Hearing her words, old lady Gu felt that Su Anan was being extremely obedient. What a good girl. Old lady Gu pained Su Anan as she asked a servant to bring the brewed wine. Drink some soup and rest your stomach. Su Anan did not say anything. She saw Gu Mocheng coming in from the outside and started laughing. His memories from last night were too messed up. He remembered him asking for a drink, as if she had also kissed Gu Mocheng. Thinking about how she had pulled Gu Mocheng's hand and placed it on her chest last night, Su Anan's face turned red. Here, have some soup. Su Anan blushed as she thought back to what happened last night. Old lady Gu took the soup that the servant brought over and passed it to Su Anan. As the soup made by the old mistress had caused her to bleed profusely, Su Anan did not dare to drink it. She could not help but look at Gu Mocheng, who was beside her. My mother didn't cook it, Gu Mocheng said. Su Anan replied with an O sound, took the soup from old lady Gu's hands and drank it. Old lady Gu opened her mouth and glared at his son unhappily. Was the food he made so bad? During lunchtime, Gu Zhen did not let Su Anan drink any more. Last night, Su Anan had gotten drunk. After being scolded by old lady Gu all morning, even if he wanted to punish Su Anan, he could endure it. After finishing their lunch, Gu Mocheng brought her and left Gu Mansion. Old lady Gu shook Su Anan's hand reluctantly, not wanting her to leave. Anan, let's leave tomorrow. One more night. Gu Mocheng had a meeting in the afternoon, and he was worried about leaving Su Anan here alone. Maybe after he left, the old lady would order Su Anan to do this and that, or bring him to visit everywhere. Gu Mocheng was sure that the old lady was anxious to take Su Anan out. She wanted to call him her son's wife when she saw him. Thinking about what old granny had done, Gu Mocheng didn't want to leave her there. Then there was Gu Zhen, who listened to everything old lady Gu said. Anan had to go back to school. I have to go back to school this weekend, the old lady Gu said in surprise. Chapter 103, I have to go back to school this weekend, the old lady Gu said in surprise. She lives in school. Upon hearing that Su Anan was staying at school, old lady Gu turned her head towards Gu Zhen, who was sitting on the sofa reading a newspaper. Don't you know their school principal? Tell others not to let Anan live in any sort of school. If it's not convenient, come back to the house. Old lady Gu is trying to think of a way for Su Anan to stay here. She hadn't brought the little girl out yet, but the group of card friends beside her had all been whispering to her every day about their daughter and son. What about a daughter-in-law? She directly dragged out a beautiful and young daughter-in-law, envious of others. Gu Zhen did not reply. The old lady Gu sounded out. Did you hear that? Newspapers, daily newspapers, what's there to look at? Weren't these all on the phone? After cursing at Gu Zhen, old lady Gu turned her head to look at Su Anan and said with a smile, Anan, come and live here. It's perfect to have Ziming as a companion. He's at your school too. You can go to school together in the morning. Without waiting for Su Anan to reply to the old lady Gu Mocheng directly said, no need. He looked at Gu Zhen again. But if you want to carry your grandson earlier, you should tell the headmaster that she doesn't have to stay in school. Gu Mocheng's words made Su Anan's face turn red. Old lady Gu saw that she couldn't kidnap her daughter-in-law to stay at the old residence, so she could only release her. When they left, old lady Gu and the others had seen Gu Mocheng to the front of the carriage, and the old lady had held on to Su Anan's hand, feeling very reluctant to part with it. Anan, come back and play next time. Next time, I'll take you to the mahjong. Hearing old lady Gu's words, Gu Mocheng frowned. He had foresight. Leaving Su Anan here would result in her getting into a lot of bad habits. Let's go. Gu Mocheng pulled Su Anan's hand and got on the carriage. The old lady Gu watched as Gu Mocheng left and said sorrowfully, since your son has grown up, you don't need your mother. Good, you can do it. Su Anan did not understand her words, and followed up with the madam. Give me a grandson as soon as possible. Grandson, the most important thing is. The old lady talked too much, and Gu Mocheng directly rolled up the window and drove away. If he were to continue speaking, his mother would have to go from his grandson's words to making up for it. Gu Ziming returned from the bar after playing for an entire night and reached the entrance of the Gu mansion. Before he even went in, he saw a familiar car drive out. The person at the back of the car was hiding behind a closed window, making Gu Ziming unable to see anything. However, he immediately recognized that it was his second uncle's car. His second uncle didn't have many cars, but he remembered every single one of them. Last time, when he was racing with Heian, he met his second uncle unluckily. He waited for the car to drive away before entering the Gu mansion. Gu Ziming grew up with Gu Zhen and old lady Gu, and the two of them were especially fond of him because his parents died too early. He was also naughty and had caused a lot of trouble every day. The only person the Gu family was afraid of was Gu Mocheng. When he heard the old lady say that Gu Mocheng had brought second aunt back, Gu Ziming didn't even think about it. He found a good excuse to read a book and went to the racetrack with his friends. He was indeed very interested in second aunt, but he was even more afraid of meeting Gu Mocheng. It was really strange. Every time he saw Gu Mocheng, his heart would beat extremely quickly, and his legs would involuntarily tremble. Gu Ziming was sure that Yue Yang must have been beaten up by his second uncle when he was young. He walked into the main hall of the old residence and was spotted by old lady Gu with her sharp eyes. Ziming, why did you just return? Your second uncle just left. Gu Ziming thought that the reason he didn't come back last night was to avoid Gu Mocheng. Even though he was being held by his second uncle and not scolded by him, he still felt uncomfortable all over. He doesn't scold you, he doesn't beat you, he likes to hang you in the air. It was just like how second uncle saw him dancing in a bar. Second uncle didn't say anything and just let him stand. Thinking about dancing in the bar, Gu Ziming thought of Heian, and Xiao Xin, these two liars. He only found out after he went to the racetrack that on the night he made the bet with them, he did not finish his route to the competition, and Heian and the rest did not reach the end either. In other words, none of them lost. There was no such thing as losing or running away. What was even more embarrassing was that quite a few people had taken pictures of him dancing. Some of his good friends had brought the photos to him and asked if he was the silly dancer. Foolish. Of course, Gu Ziming wouldn't admit it. He thought that they wouldn't be able to recognize him if he wore a mask. But his friends said it was him. Although a person was wearing a mask, his body and eyes could tell that it was him. Since he was recognized, Gu Ziming had no choice but to admit it. His part of the dance was made fun of by his friends, who laughed and laughed, saying that he was wearing a mask and dancing naked was more fun than running naked. The words of a friend made Gu Ziming think of how he was teased by Xiaoyan and Han Longyi in the bar earlier. At that time, he thought that he had lost the bet, and running naked was even more shameful. Now that he heard his friends talk, Gu Ziming realized that he had been tricked. He didn't even need to say that he had won or lost. He didn't even need to fulfill the bet. If he were to meet Heian again, he would definitely let her run naked. Gu Ziming thought absent-mindedly how to find Heian and vent his anger. Ziming! The old lady Gu called out repeatedly. Gu Ziming reacted and looked at the old lady Gu suspiciously. Grandmother, he said, vexed at the thought of his face in the underpants. The detestable Heian. I'm talking to you, do you hear me? Really, what are you thinking? Seeing that the old lady was angry, Gu Ziming immediately said, Grandma, tell me. He had to listen to his grandmother, or else he would have to listen to the madam's nagging all day and might even receive a beating from his grandfather. There was no other way. Grandpa helped Grandma, so whatever Grandma said was right. He could offend his grandfather, but he could not offend his grandmother. It's a pity you didn't come back yesterday. Your second aunt is beautiful and well-behaved. When old lady Gu thought of Suanan, she couldn't stop laughing. The more she looked at Suanan, the more satisfied she felt. Her son was really amazing to have found such a good wife and returned. Grandmother, didn't you say that second uncle Niu came back to find an aunt about my age after eating some fresh grass? Gu Ziming repeated what old lady Gu said before. Old lady Gu nodded. That's your second uncle's fault? What does it have to do with your second aunt? Let me tell you, your second aunt and you are both studying in Ningcheng University, so you have to protect her in school. Don't let such a good girl get bullied. Second uncle's wife was younger than him, but if she met him, didn't she have to call him aunt? Thinking about it, Gu Ziming was definitely unhappy, so he would not listen to the madam's words and look for her. You, learn more from your second aunt. She is an outstanding reader and a good girl. She is not like you, who either go for a ride every night or go to the bar to play. After making friends and friends, they never returned home. As they talked, the old lady Gu began to complain about Gu Ziming. Gu Ziming felt that something was amiss. When he planned to slip away and return to his room, the old lady grabbed his hand. Did you go drinking with someone last night? Saying that, old lady Gu smelled the scent of smoke and alcohol from Gu Ziming's body. Gu Ziming originally wanted to run into the room and take a bath as soon as he returned, but he didn't know that he would run into the old lady. Grandmother, I didn't go to the bar. The old lady Gu thought about Suanan's good behavior, then looked at her own grandson, who was disobedient, and said angrily, Your second uncle is right. You only know how to lie to this old woman and go to places you shouldn't if you have the time. After saying that, the old lady Gu turned towards the second floor and shouted, Old Gramps, quickly go downstairs. Your grandson went to the bar to play again. Gu Ziming heard old lady Gu shouting and anxiously said, Grandma, why are you harming me like this? Wasn't this intentionally asking his grandfather to come down and beat him? Sometimes, when he came back and got caught, his grandma would hold it up for him. What was going on today? Not long after, the sound of Gu Zhen's footsteps came from upstairs. He stood at the stairs looking at him with a sullen face. Your grandson was out fooling around last night, old lady Gu pointed to Gu Ziming and said. Gu Zhen quickly walked down and went into the living room to find something that could beat Gu Ziming up. Seeing the opportunity, Gu Ziming ran upstairs, and an angry Gu Zhen chased after him and beat him up. Old lady Gu looked at Gu Ziming, who was running away, and thought of Su Anan. An is still the most obedient. On the way out from Ningcheng University, Mu Jinyu had just arrived at the side of the carriage, where a group of people had appeared out of nowhere. Without saying a word, they directly went and beat him up. Mu Jinyu had just been kicked in school by Su Anan. The pain on his stomach and hands had not subsided yet, but he was still mysteriously pressed down and hit fiercely on the ground by a group of people. He tried to resist, but he was beaten even worse. They released him, and Mu Jinyu thought that this round was over. Then he felt a sharp pain in his wrist. He cried out in pain, as if they had broken his hand, and then he heard the sound of the other hand being broken, and he cried out in pain. Both his hands were broken. After Mu Jinyu was sent to the hospital, the doctor told him after checking that both of his hands had been broken. When Lady Mu at the side heard this news, her entire body froze. She thought to herself, who could have such a huge grudge with her son, that their heart was so ruthless that it would break Jinyu's wrist? Was it because Mu Jinyu offended the business world at work? It was Mu Jin who had provoked too many debts from others, and had caused others to take revenge on her son. Looking at the Mu Jinyu who was covered with wounds, Lady Mu's mind was in a mess. She couldn't remember who beat up her precious son so badly. Chapter 104. Jinyu, who exactly did you get? Lady Mu asked. Mu Jinyu recalled that among the people he had interacted with during this period of time, they didn't seem to have offended any important figures. He suddenly thought about the man who came to look for Su Anan in Ningcheng University. When he saw the man in the hospital, besides being surprised at his looks, there was also viciousness in the man's eyes. The fierceness from the man's body made him tremble. Could this man have found someone to beat him up? No, it absolutely could not be him. He was just Su Anan using money to raise a lover. Even if this man was powerful, Mu Jinyu didn't want to admit that he was more outstanding than him in every aspect. He firmly believed that the man Su Anan was looking for was not as good as she was. Mu Jinyu would never think that the person he thought to be Su Anan's lover was actually Gu Mocheng. The Lady Mu looked at the wounds on Mu Jinyu's face and his broken hands, feeling very sad and frustrated. A fine and healthy person was actually beaten to such a state, and in 100 days' time, he would be married to Su Zihan. At that time, wouldn't it be embarrassing to die receiving guests in such a state? It was impossible to postpone the date of marriage. The invitation had just been sent out. How could they take it back? Sigh. The more Lady Mu thought about it, the more frustrated she became. She couldn't help but sigh. Mu Jinyu's whole body was in pain. He was not worried about the marriage, but he was thinking about Su Anan. When Mu Jinyu saw the scene of Su Anan and the man together, he couldn't help but clench his teeth in hatred. He didn't mind that she had slept with another man, and was willing to give up on marrying Su Zihan to look for her. Not only did she not agree, she had even kicked him. Damn that Su Anan, Mu Jinyu scolded angrily. When Lady Mu heard the name Su Anan, she stared at Mu Jinyu. Mu Jinyu's face had also been beaten black and blue. There was no trace of his previous handsomeness. You're not going to look for Su Anan? The Lady Mu asked in displeasure. Ever since she set the date for Mu Jinyu's and his wedding, she could tell that something was amiss with Mu Jinyu. A man was really despicable. He ate while looking at the pot in his bowl. Jinyu, how many times have I told you this? I won't allow you to marry her, Lady Mu said firmly. When she thought about how her unborn child had been pushed away by Su Anan, her heart filled with rage. What was even more infuriating was that Su Anan did not pay any price for this matter. Can't you have some memory? Not only did Su Anan collude with other men behind your back, she also killed Zihan's child. Jinyu, that is your biological child, the Lady Mu reminded. Mu Jinyu did not dare to be interested in what the Lady Mu had to say. He only knew that he was even more interested in Su Anan. The moment he thought of Su Anan, he thought of her attitude toward him and the relationship between her and that man. Mom, I know, he said perfunctorily. The matter of Su Anan taking him, he would just let it go like that. Sooner or later he would make Su Anan kneel down and beg him to take her. The more he couldn't get it, the more he wanted it in his heart. Lady Mu was furious at Mu Jinyu's attitude. How could he not listen? If he really liked Su Anan back then, why would he want to be together with her? Now that he and Su Zihan had already set a date for their marriage, he actually remembered Su Anan. Su Anan told him to scram again and again. Jinyu, don't look for Su Anan anymore, the Lady Mu said in a stern voice. I saw that you were beaten up like this. It might have something to do with Su Anan. Lady Mu's first sentence was the truth behind Mu Jinyu's beating. Mu Jinyu did not speak. He did not want to hear what the Lady Mu had to say. Jinyu. Seeing Mu Jinyu ignoring her, Lady Mu spoke up. What are you thinking? You will soon be married to Zihan. Don't Daddy have a lot of women out there? Her words pierced into Lady Mu's heart. When Lady Mu thought about her husband's bastards, her chest felt so stuffy. They had been married for many years, but Mu Jin's affair with a woman had never stopped. The old man Mu had overseen him before, so Mu Jin started to listen carefully. However, a few days later, he regained his usual modesty. If not for Lady Mu having a son, her main seat would have been squeezed out long ago. If not for Su Anan's mother, her position in Lady Mu would have been given to someone else long ago. Jinyu, what do you mean by that? You must not forget that Zihan just lost your child, Lady Mu reminded angrily. One cannot forget gratitude. Just as she finished speaking, Mu Jinyuleng mocked her while laughing. Mom, as a person you can't forget your kindness. Lady Mu was startled as he understood what Mu Jinyu meant. Su Anan's mother saved Mu Jinyu, but Lady Mu and Mu Jin insisted on annulling the marriage between Su Anan and Su Anan. I'm thinking for your sake, the Lady Mu said angrily. Zihan's grandmother is old Lady Jiang. Marrying her would help your career. After stabilizing her career, she, Lady Mu, would be able to sit stably in her position. As her son, Mu Jinyu was very clear about what the Lady Mu was thinking in her heart. It was because he heard the Lady Mu's encouragement that he was unable to resist Su Zihan's enticement and secretly hid his relationship with Su Zihan. Now he was slightly regretful. He felt that Su Anan was much more attractive than him. Mom, I didn't say I won't marry Zihan. Why are you so excited? Mu Jinyu mocked. He had thought about it. If Su Anan treated him like this, he wouldn't marry her. He was waiting for Gumocheng to dump her, and at that time, Su Anan, who no one wanted, would naturally come and beg him. Jinyu? Hearing Mu Jinyu's words, Lady Mu looked at him in disbelief. Who would have thought that his own son would be such a bastard? Mu Jinyu disagreed. He did not feel that his idea was wrong at all. Outside the sick room, Su Zihan and Jiang Mei, who came to see Mu Jinyu, heard the conversation between mother and son inside clearly. When Su Zihan heard this, she was both hurt and angry, but when she wanted to rush in and question Mu Jinyu, she was pulled back by Jiang Mei. Zihan, do you still want to marry Mu Jinyu? If she still wanted to marry him, then she couldn't rush through this door. She could only pretend that she hadn't heard anything before. Zihan, is the wedding going to end now? Mu Jinyu actually had thoughts of raising a lover outside the sect. Even if he married Zihan, he wouldn't be happy. No. Su Zihan rejected her flatly. She really liked Mu Jinyu. Zihan, you won't be happy marrying him. Jiang Mei said. She used to think that Mu Jinyu genuinely liked Zihan and would always be able to tolerate her willfulness and temper in the future. But after hearing Mu Jinyu's words, Jiang Mei was sure that if both Zhang families fell, Zihan's days would be very difficult. Mom, I won't let this go. Su Zihan clenched her teeth and said bitterly, if I want to marry him, I must marry him. Mu Jinyu wanted to raise Su Anan outside the city after he got married, so she let him raise her. Su Anan wants to marry brother Jinyu. She's dreaming. I let her be a lover for the rest of her life. After Jiang Mei finished speaking, she frowned. She was very worried about one thing. The reason why Su Zihan insisted on marrying Mu Jinyu was because of Su Anan. Since young, Su Anan had been doing everything she could to steal it away. First, there were the clothes, and then there was Mu Jinyu. As for Gumocheng, she didn't throw it to him. Su Zihan felt that she was the genius of the Su family. Only then would she be able to use the things she didn't want. Zihan, don't use your life as a joke. Jiang Mei thought for her. Su Zihan refused to listen at all. Mom, don't worry. Su Anan will definitely not have a good life in the future. If you want to be brother Jinyu's lover, then you're really shameless. Jiang Mei did understand Mu Jinyu's words and understood him clearly. After this, without Su Anan, Mu Jinyu would probably have other women outside. Zihan's temper was also bad. The two of them did not know that their married life would end up like this. But Jiang Mei would do whatever she wanted. If there really comes a day when Mu Jinyu had a lover outside, as his mother, she would settle those women for him. Zihan, I have something that I need to clarify with you. Jiang Mei pulled Su Zihan far away from Mu Jinyu's sick room. You must not leak the secret of your small child the last time. It had to be known that Mu Jin and his wife, the Inahuri S, had allowed Su Zihan to marry Mu Jinyu. If they were to be found out by the Mourinho that Su Zihan did not want to have children of her own, and even push the blame for the child's death onto Su Anan, Su Zihan, who had married into the Mu family, would definitely not have a good life, even if they had to rely on the Zhang family. I know, Mom. Su Zihan replied. Gumocheng first sent Su Anan to the Gu family. On this trip to the Gu mansion, the two of them had an additional tacit understanding. Along the way, they did not speak, but when Su Anan looked at the man beside her, she could not help but smile. She really liked Gumocheng. When they arrived at the Gu household, Su Anan got off the carriage. When the general in the garden saw that Su Anan and the others had returned, she excitedly rushed towards Su Anan. Whitey. Su Anan was especially excited when she saw it. She went to school for 2 days, thinking about dogs, Uncle Chen, and even more so, Gumocheng. The Whitey was very happy to see Su Anan. Just as she was about to pounce towards Su Anan, the man behind her stopped her and said, General. The Whitey that was running in front of Su Anan was shocked by Gumocheng's cold gaze. It slowed down its movement and did not pounce towards Su Anan, but instead walked around him. Su Anan and the Whitey were so used to playing, they would usually hug him and play when there was nothing to do. She looked at Gumocheng suspiciously and said, The Whitey is not dirty. It takes a bath every day. Suanan thought that Gumo Cheng thought that the whitey was dirty and explained. Don't hug with the whitey too much in the future. Gumo Cheng said indifferently. Gumo Cheng did not explain and said directly to Suanan. Chapter 105. Suanan always listened to what Gumo Cheng said the most. Gumo Cheng returned to his room to change, then went back to Gu's. Before leaving, Suanan sent Gumo Cheng out. She supposed the other wives did the same, taking him to work in the morning and picking him up at the door in the evening. She looked at the handsome and mature man in front of her. Although he wasn't young, he was born to be a well-dressed man. Goodbye, husband, Suanan said with a smile. Gumo Cheng looked at her, and just as he was about to turn around and leave, he felt that something was missing. Anan, you have one less thing to do. Suanan looked at Gumo Cheng in puzzlement, not knowing what he was saying. She looked at Gumo Cheng blankly. Seeing her silly look, Gumo Cheng raised the corner of his mouth into a smile, bent over and kissed her on the cheek. Wait for me to come back. After he finished speaking, he left Suanan behind and went out. After giving her a kiss, Suanan stood there in a daze. She reached out to touch her cheeks and thought back to when Gumo Cheng had kissed her on his own accord. Was she dreaming? Gumo Cheng had kissed her just now? Suanan touched the place where she had been kissed by Gumo Cheng again and confirmed that she was not dreaming. She took out her phone and happily sent a WeChat to Fu Xin. Gumo Cheng kissed me. She was extremely happy and immediately shared this matter with her good friend. Fu Xin quickly replied, Congratulations, you have succeeded in getting Gumo Cheng straight. Suanan replied, unhappily, Of course not. After saying that, she did not continue to chat with Fu Xin. At night, Gumo Cheng came back early. After Suanan finished showering, Gumo Cheng followed her in to take a bath. She sat in the room drying her hair, and when it was almost dry, a pair of hands reached over and took the hairdryer from her. Suanan turned her head to look. Unknowingly, Gumo Cheng had already finished bathing and came out. He was bare-chested and his hair was wet and dripping. When Suanan saw his chest, her face immediately flushed red. Hubby, are you going to blow your hair? Suanan thought that Gumo Cheng was going to blow himself off after taking her hairdryer. Gumo Cheng said to Suanan, Don't move. Oh. Suanan looked at Gumo Cheng and agreed. Following that, Gumo Cheng turned on the hairdryer, touched Suanan's hair, and blew it for her. Suanan felt that Gumo Cheng's fingers were stroking her scalp back and forth. She felt that it was so warm and so blissful. Within the sound of the dryer, Suanan said to the man behind her, Hubby, you're so good. Gumo Cheng didn't hear her words. He focused on blowing her hair. Because her hair was long, he blew very slowly and seriously. The room at night was especially quiet. The sound of the wind blowing could be heard all around, and the atmosphere became very warm and cozy. After blowing her hair, Suanan laid on the bed like usual with her phone, waiting for the time when she was tired before sleeping. On the side of the bed, her position suddenly caved in, causing Suanan to look to the side. Gumo Cheng had already dried his hair and was sleeping by her side. Suanan turned her head and looked at Gumo Cheng, who was beside her. She was curious as to why she was lying beside him so early in the morning. In the past, he would be in her study at this time, or else she would still be in the company and would not be back. Suanan did not mind. She continued to play with her phone. And Anne? A gentle voice came out from beside her ear. Suanan looked at Gumo Cheng in puzzlement as to what he had called her. Just as she was wondering, Gumo Cheng's face suddenly grew larger in her eyes. After that, his lips lightly kissed her mouth, and with a light kiss, Suanan blushed. She widened her eyes and looked at Gumo Cheng with suspicion. Do you want me? Gumo Cheng asked with a gentle voice. Hearing Gumo Cheng's words, Suanan's face became even redder. You didn't want me last night. Seeing Suanan's red face staring at him blankly, Gumo Cheng laughed, then stared at Suanan's clear eyes and continued, Forgot. Suanan vaguely remembered what happened when she was drunk. She felt that she must have been as disgraced as she had been the night she was drugged. You said you're not young anymore. After he finished speaking, the faint red boom, which Suanan had originally faded away, began to burn again. It was as if she had said those words, and then remembered, she seemed to be holding Gumo Cheng's hand, and had him place his hand in front of her. It is indeed not small, Gumo Cheng said seriously. As he spoke, his gaze landed in front of Suanan. To be seriously stared at by a man, she must have felt that he was wretched. But Suanan didn't feel so. On the contrary, she hoped that Gumo Cheng would do something to her. If you like someone, you will wholeheartedly hand yourself over to them. Anan, I'm saying that you're still a little young, Gumo Cheng said. After Suanan finished listening, her face was burning with shame. She had even told Gumo Cheng twice that her breasts were not small. How would she know that Gumo Cheng was referring to her age? She was so embarrassed that she didn't know what to say. She wanted to find a hole in the ground and let herself inside. When Gumo Cheng saw that her head was lowered and that she was about to fall into his bed, he reached out and pulled her into his embrace. Her warm chest gave Suanan warmth, and Suanan raised her head to look at the man who was 11 years older than her. She liked the feeling of being held by him. Anan, you are my wife, my only wife in this life, Gumo Cheng promised. He would spoil her, he would protect her, he would spend the rest of his life with her. Right. Hearing Gumo Cheng's words, Suanan responded. She knew that this man usually spoke very little, but he would definitely do as he said. He was a very committed, very principled man. Anan, do you want it? Gumo Cheng suddenly lowered his head, his lips landing beside her ear. His voice turned soft and hoarse, causing Suanan to look up again. Suanan actually replied with an N. When Gumo Cheng heard her answer, then looked at her charming red face, he felt that it was really interesting. She was drunk last night. After getting drunk, she reminded him of the night when she was drugged. She was like a cute kitten, causing him to lose control and making him want to eat her on the spot. Gumo Cheng had never felt such an urgent need to be alone before, and he had to admit that such a Suanan was very interesting. Then I'll take it, Gumo Cheng said. He looked at Suanan's red face, and before Suanan could reply to him, he had already kissed her. When he kissed her, Suanan cooperatively closed her eyes. Previously, when Gumo Cheng had kissed her, she had stiffened in fear of his kisses and his touch. Now, she liked it and would return the kiss. This time, Gumo Cheng did not endure it any further. He brought Suanan to meet her parents, and even if she did not obtain the certificate, the relationship between the two of them had grown stronger. Or perhaps it was more accurate to say that he didn't want to endure it any longer. After being played around by Suanan so many times, all he felt for today was Suanan, so he didn't go to the study room at night. He decided to spend the whole night to love Suanan well. As a result of the night of lovemaking, Suanan was unable to get out of bed. She lay in bed and felt as if she were dreaming. Last night, she and Gumo Cheng had done it. And not just once. As she thought about those things, her face became very red, and her heart began to thump noisily. It wasn't the first time she had been with Gumo Cheng last night, but she had never felt this way before. In the afternoon, Suanan had to go to school. Ningcheng University had strict control over the students. Every Sunday night, the first-year students had to be reported in the school. Suanan didn't want to go. She and Gumo Cheng had a new beginning, and she didn't want to face separation so easily. When they were going to school, she didn't tell Gumo Cheng that she had brought some clothes with her, and left. When Gumo Cheng returned at night, he did not see her. He thought that Suanan was embarrassed to see him, and was hiding in her room. When he went upstairs, Uncle Chen deliberately asked, "Sir, what are you looking for upstairs?" What was he looking for? It was obviously the little wife he was looking for. Anne is upstairs, Gumo Cheng replied. Uncle Chen pursed his lips and smiled. He was very happy to see Gumo Cheng care about Suanan. The madam went to school in the afternoon. Why would she be upstairs? He went to school. Hearing Uncle Chen's reply, Gumo Cheng was startled. He felt that something was missing in the house. Didn't madam tell you? Uncle Chen asked with a smile. Gumo Cheng shook his head. He really didn't receive Suanan's call, and had even forgotten about the matter of her going to school. Their experience last night was too good. Gumo Cheng thought Suanan was unwilling to leave. At least she had come home early today because he missed her smell. He couldn't wait until her birthday. Since he had already eaten, he might as well let it go. Sir, I heard that there are many good-looking boys in Ningcheng University. He looked at Gumo Cheng's faded face and continued. Although Madam doesn't fancy other boys, Madam is very beautiful, so it's hard to ensure that those boys won't stare at her. If there was a good-looking and fierce man chasing after Madam, I wonder if she would be interested. After Uncle Chen finished speaking, Gumo Cheng's face sank even more. After listening to what Uncle Chen said, Gumo Cheng thought about the boys in Ningcheng University who were much younger than him. And An was young, and had never experienced too much temptation, so what if someone else took her away? Gumo Cheng did not dare to think further. He took out his phone and called Old Lady Gu. Without saying much, he asked Old Lady Gu if she wanted to carry her grandson. When Old Lady Gu heard about her grandson, she could no longer remain calm. Gumo Cheng then mentioned about Suanan's dormitory, making the old lady understand what she meant. I'll get your father to call right away. Gumo Cheng was very satisfied with the old mistress's words, so he immediately hung up the phone. After last night's love, he didn't like the idea of having to sleep alone in the future.